The Light of the Nations by C.F. Deems. Chapter 2, Birth of Jesus, its date. The birth of Jesus occurred under the following circumstances. Joseph, to whom Mary was espoused, was a devout Jew. He knew nothing of the announcement which had been made to her by the angel. After her return from the visit to Elizabeth, it became apparent that she was about to become a mother. Shocked at the discovery, Joseph thought of making an example of her. But his love was not wholly destroyed by her supposed misconduct, and he was minded to put her away privily, which was a milder course, and as it saved her from the shame of public exposure. Pondering these things in his troubled and affectionate heart, he had a dream in which the angel said, Joseph, son of David, fear not to take unto you Mary your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost, and she shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. So see, he would have been of Joshua, but no, it's you're supposed to be a vehicle of God's saving. That's what the name implies, not that, you're the God of saving or anything. No, that's silly, culturally and linguistically. But we kind of presume this is sort of it. And the thing is that she was told, it's like, hey, I'm not going to have a kid. I'm chaste. No one's violated me. What's the deal? And then she went to conceive. It doesn't say she didn't conceive naturally. Joseph seems to have been addressed by the title Son of David, as if the angel would assure him that though he came of royal blood, there should be no humiliation to him by taking Mary to wife. Joseph rose from his sleep next day and did as he had been bidden in the dream, taking his bride to his own home and awaiting the unfolding of events. Because this whole gospel thing is a type of unfolding text, not quite the same thing as what Herodotus or Plutarch or something did. In due time, the great event occurred. Jesus was born. The date and the place of this great birth are important and intimately connected. Before other things, let us strive to settle, as nearly as we may, the question of the time of the advent of Jesus to the world. Can we ascertain the year, the month, the day? Christmas has been celebrated in the Latin Church as the anniversary of the birth of Jesus on the 25th of December, and the year has been marked as the 754th after the founding of the city. And before we look at these pictures, what city does it say? Of Rome. And so we have a shepherd field in Bethlehem. I wonder if they specifically picked real scenes to draw of Bethlehem and Nazareth here, or whether they just supposed something like the writers of the Zohar kind of had an artificial Aramaic and, had a flawed geography, like somebody who hadn't actually been there. The tradition of the Latin Church first appears in the writings of Augustine, who was born in 354 of the Common Era. Too late to make him any authority on such a question. It is now well ascertained that the point from which the Christian era is dated is several years later than the actual birth of Christ. Now, depending on which individual you look at, is what we're looking at. It could be 4 or 5 years to match up with the 1 star. It could be, about 100 years if you're talking the person who, 80 years prior was giving or I forget exactly what year, but something like 80 years prior was giving that, what we call the Sermon on the Mount, to the Essenes. And, because they had the teacher of righteousness and teacher of wickedness, and there was, now, as much as people can say that's a role, there was particular individuals that did make their way into the Jesus story, but he's born in some year BCE, before the Common Era. Let the reader recollect this. It may seem anomalous to have any other day for the Christian epoch than the very day on which Jesus was really born, but as the chronology of Christendom has gone on for years before thorough investigation was made to whatever results they lead, it would now clearly be impracticable to rectify the error. But it would be right. Like in the Muslim world, when people found out that their calculations about the prayer direction were off, things were changed. Sometimes there's a fuss, even nowadays, of that's when that sort of thing happens. But in a community that more or less recently set up its direction, but when that's figured out, it's figured out. A confusion caused by adding the years and months and days necessary to conform the 1st of January 1871, for instance, with the real time would be a much greater inconvenience than following the received chronology, especially when we shall show that the most recent researches and studies exhibit an error even in that of at least 1 year, and probably more. And this is not a matter of affecting any man's faith, but is a mere question of historical inquiry. If even it could be shown that the evangelist Luke is inexact, his want of exactness is easily explained, and is of no manner of importance for the object which he had in view. In Luke 3:1, it is recorded that in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod, tetrarch of Galilee, John began to preach, and that at that time Jesus began to be about 30 years of age. Luke 3:23. The word about must allude to something less than 1 year and refer to months or weeks. The 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar is now to be fixed. Tiberius Caesar. People say Caesar, and you're supposed to say Ka and Czar, but it's Tsar. So if I mess up that, it's the culture that I'm in. Tiberius Caesar was admitted to joint rule by Augustus some time before that emperor's death, at which time Tiberius became sole emperor. Does Luke's date refer to his associate reign or solitary reign? That refers to the former, is shown thus. And I don't think we're going to get to that, but according to Dionysius Exiguus in the 6th century, one fact shows that is at least 4 years to date, namely that Herod died, as Joseph shows. Josephus in his Antiquities 18:9 and 3, 17:8 and 4, and that Jesus was born before the death of Herod. And we certainly intend to get to the rest of this book.